second youngest son. He's suggesting it came out of nowhere. What we subsequently learned is it may have come from the former president or his legal team acting in bad faith. This is a deepfake example of what is possible with powerful computer and editing. It took around 72 hours to create this example from scratch using extremely powerful GPU. It could be improved with more computing time, but 90% of people cannot tell the difference.
In a way that none of those failures of the past would recur because just the physics of how it's built.
This is deepfake example of what is possible with powerful computer and editing. It took around 72 hours to create this example from scratch using extremely powerful GPU. It could improve with more computing time, but 90% people cannot tell the difference.
Freeman, and what you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see?
Man who's been president, who wants to be president again, Donald Trump, who's under criminal trial as we speak. What was that setup? What were you saying? I mean, he's way at the back of the frame.
This is, I've been told, one of his favourite rooms. It's the boardroom in Trump Tower, where everyone would get fired in his TV show. This is where he exercised power as a rehearsal, I think, for the presidency. I remember saying to him, Donald, let's just be human.
When was this?
This is before he was president, before even the election campaign started properly. Yeah. And I said, let's be human together. I said, we've all followed your career. No one can doubt it's an extraordinary career path you've had, but there's always something about you. There's always an air of tension and controversy about things you say and do in public. And I'm sure it's intentional on your part, but it feels to me as if you're in the middle of an emotional storm. And I said, I can't live with that anxiety all the time. As a fellow human being, I'd like to know how you weather the storm. He calmly looked at me and he said, I am the storm.
Even then?
I had those words ringing out in my brain. Through the election campaign, through his presidency, through his post-presidency, and now we're in another cycle again. And I keep thinking to myself, there's only one person who can navigate perfectly through the storm, and that's the creator of the storm. So these people are very powerful, formidable, and they're much smarter than we make them out to be. And they are not to be underestimated. And I think we always seem to do that. He's smart.
The test of a man is how much he will bear for a cause which he knows to be right. How long will he stand in the depths of despair? How much will he suffer and fight? There are many to serve when the victory is near, and few other hurts to be borne. But it calls for a leader of courage to cheer the men in a battle forlorn. It is the way you hold out against odds that are great that proves what your courage is worth. It is the way that you stand to the bruises of fate that shows up your stature and girth. And victory is nothing but proof of your skill, veneered with a glory that's thin. Unless it is a proof of unfaltering will, and unless you have suffered to win.
Well, first question is whether you support Israel's goal to completely destroy Hamas.
Okay, so let me just explain why it's so sad. If I were president, you would have never been attacked because Iran was broke. They had no money. China couldn't buy oil from them because otherwise China wouldn't be able to deal with the United States. I said to China, I said to many nations, 47 nations I spoke to many of them personally. If you buy oil from Iran, you will not do any business in the United States, and we're going to tariff your products. And Iran did almost no oil business. You know that. Nobody would buy oil because of me. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for Hezbollah. They had no money for anybody. And now they're sitting with $221 billion in cash, and they control Iraq, which has $300 billion in cash. Stupidly, the United States went in and blew everything up. You know, you had two countries that were sort of equal in power, and one of them got blown up by the United States, and now Iran has a big advantage in the Middle East over a lot of other countries. When I saw October 7th, it was one of the saddest things I've ever seen because there was no reason for it. They would have never, ever done that for two reasons. Number one, they were broke, and number two, I was the president. They would have never done that because they knew there would have been very big consequences. All right. That being said, you have to finish up your war. You have to finish it up. You got to get it done. And I'm sure you'll do that. And we got to get to peace. You can't have this going on. And I will say Israel has to be very careful because you're losing a lot of the world. You're losing a lot of support. But you have to finish up. You have to get the job done. And you have to get on to peace. Well, look, there has been no president better to Israel than me. Iran wanted to make a deal. And with the deal, 90% of the deal that I want to make is no nuclear weapon. I'm a very loyal person. I've been loyal to Israel. I've been the best president in history by a factor of 10 to Israel because of all the things I do. The embassy, Jerusalem being the capital, the best location for the embassy, and getting the embassy built. But then you have Abraham Accords, and then you have Golan Heights.
I want to show with you a question that in our minds, every leader in the world should reply. How would you react if, God forbid, it was your children or grandchildren who were kidnapped by Hamas or suffering the horrors that so many Israelis were going through on October 7?
On October 7, I would say I would act very much the same way as you did. You have to be crazy not to. Only a fool would not do that. That was a horrible attack. But it was an attack that I blame on Biden because they have no respect for him. He can't put two sentences together. He can't talk. He's a very dumb person. He's a dumb person. You're in a very dangerous neighborhood. And with Iran getting a nuclear weapon, once they have a nuclear weapon, you'll be speaking to them a lot differently than you're speaking right now. They would have never had a nuclear weapon with me. They understood that. They would never have
And
had.
they will not have a nuclear weapon with you if you are re-elected?
They will never have a nuclear weapon, no. But you have a long time to go. They could have a nuclear weapon in 35 days. Right? I have 7 months to go and 9 months to take office. A lot of bad things can happen in that. You know, that's a lot. That's like an eternity. 7 months in this world, and especially in the Middle East where it's so combative and so combustible. And this would be a time, if we had a real president, if we had a president that knew what he was doing, that could put two sentences together, that could get solved very quickly.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
President, thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you both.
Then he woke up Sunday morning and got smacked with a hard dose of reality from left-wing CNN of all places. Their brand new survey shows Trump taking his biggest lead yet ever over Joe Biden. And it also says that most Americans find President Biden's term to be a total failure.